March 27, 2024 for our City Commission meeting. Let's have the roll call, please.
Mayor Smith.
Present.
Mayor Allen. Present. Commissioner Kaler. Commissioner Clayton. Present. And Commissioner Colley.
Present.
And
Commissioner Kaler's here.
there she is. And I'm present too. So thank you all. Everybody's here, one form or another. Welcome everybody joining us here in the gallery and also on social media. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation, and I'll take care of the invocation, Brian. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this beautiful day. Just great to see the springtime season coming upon us and new life being born. And Lord, it's also a time of the year when we think about the risen Savior, how one day, the darkest day this world has ever known, when we put you to death, and 3 days later was the greatest day this world has ever known, when you rose from the dead. So we just give you thanks, Lord, for the Easter season. May we all just remember the real purpose of it, and truly recognize that you are a sovereign God, you love us, and you care for us. And Lord, as we look over this agenda today too, we just ask for your direction and guidance to each item we talk about today. Need your guidance. We give you thanks in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. And we'll go ahead and start with public comments. Do we have any?
We have none registered.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item, the appointments. Proclamations, recognitions, nominations, and public hearings. We have recognition of City Clerk Reed for earning a certified municipal court designation. And Finance Director Landis will take the lead on this.
Thank you. So, as you know, Melissa Reed is our city clerk, and she's been with us since February of 2021. And as soon as you come on board, you're expected to know everything there is to know about being a city clerk. And she's done a really great job at doing that. But there's actually a certification that goes along with it as well. Mm-hmm. And it's typically a 4-year program. And Melissa was able to accomplish that in 3 years. And that program is managed through CCMFOA, which is a City Clerk and Municipal Finance Officers Association. And Wichita State University assists with that program as well. So in order to earn the designation, it's 60 professional points that have to be earned, and that's through a combination of attending their spring and fall conferences, but the majority of it is earned on her own, which is work outside of class, not just attending webinars, but also even preparing a capstone and having to make a presentation. It's far more than many of us have to do for our positions here at the city for an outside organization in order to earn those types of designations. So in a message that they sent back from the IIMC, which is actually the overarching organization that issues the certification, they noted that in light of the speed and drastic nature of change these days, lifelong learning is not only desirable, it is necessary for all in local government to keep pace with growing demands and changing needs of the citizens we serve. We applaud your educational accomplishments and achievements of this milestone and congratulate you on your personal pursuit of professional excellence. And on top of that, Melissa is also now working towards her Master Municipal Clerk designation, which is an MMC. And typically that takes about 2 years, and she should accomplish that within 1 or right after, which I don't want to try and hold her to that. I mean, it really is an accomplishment to start moving on it. But it also shows that she really does strive for professional excellence every day, and it's really a pleasure to work alongside her. So that's
wonderful.
what I have.
I just want to say congratulations too. I always like the idea if we can educate our own people from within and promote them from within. And I just want to say, personally, congratulations, Melissa. Doing that in 3 years, 4-year program. I would have done it. It's 5 years in a 4-year program, kind of my history, but why bore you with my problems? So let me just go ahead and say congratulations. It's a real accomplishment. I think we're very proud of you. I know we all feel the same way, so congratulations.
Thank you.
But she does have a certificate that she has received from IIMC as well.
Let's all three get this.
I would like to thank her for not falling asleep during my strategic planning session.
Or at least pretending like she did. There you go. Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
I just wanted to say thank you for your support, not only while I've been at the city, but through my time in Ottawa. I moved to Ottawa 27 years ago and had no idea how much this community would play a part in my life and my family's life. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve our community in this capacity and all of your support. So thank you so much on this award.
Great, thank you, Randy. Give you time to get back to your chair and back to duties. The consent agenda, has everybody had a chance to look over the agenda? And if we do, we have an approval, motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second and a third. We got them all covered. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. Let's move on to declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, we'll continue on with item 10A.
Continued discussion of flood insurance recommendations for 2024.
We'll discuss recommendation to cancel all flood insurance policies or some form of that in its entirety. So we'll have, here we go. Michelle will come up and kind of give us a brief synopsis of what we've been talking about.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. All right, so next slide. City staff recommends the city either cancel National Flood Insurance Program or excess flood policies or maintain coverage on our existing buildings. Last year, during the 2024 budget preparation, Mayor Pro Tem Mike Skidmore, now mayor, requested staff review our flood coverage increase of deductibles or policy elimination on our city buildings due to the increase of premiums. It was recommended that the city evaluate either whether the flood coverage was needed, either with a certified levy and potential risk. The original recommendation was presented and discussed at the March 2024 City Commission meeting. The city has had flood coverage since 2012, and that was at the recommendation of our insurance broker. All of our covered buildings are now in Zone X, which has changed since we originally discussed this in 2016. David Hamby, who's the city engineer and our floodplain manager, detailed the current locations of all of our buildings. And right now, the buildings are either in a 0.2% annual chance flood hazard area, areas of a 1% annual chance flood with an average depth less than 1 foot, or with drainage areas of less than 1 square mile, areas with reduced flood risk due to the levee, and in an area with minimal flood hazard. Qualifying for FEMA assistance without flood insurance, the Kansas Division of Emergency Management shared some programs with me, which is administered by their mitigation office. And these are grant programs. The first one is the Hazard Grant Program. Then there's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Community and Flood Mitigation Assistance, FMA, which assist organizations with infrastructure, mitigation, administrative, and management costs. FMA does have an NFIP requirement. Another program is called Public Assistance, and this provides assistance after there's been a disaster declaration made by the president. And it is to be used for debris removal, emergency measures, and building restoration. FEMA funds the federal cost share, and subapplicants, which would be the City of Ottawa, must pay for the remaining costs. Next slide. Okay, I realize there's a lot of detail here. Under current flood coverage, the city has both NFIP and excess flood coverage policies, and because of the NFIP limits, we purchased excess flood coverage on City Hall, the police department, and the fire station. And because of the costs, we have not increased those values that match our property and casualty policies due to costs. And I'm talking primarily about replacement costs. Our excess policies will not pay anything unless the NFIP policies have paid the entire $500,000 limit on building and contents. Without NFIP coverage, the city would be required to pay the entire $500,000 deductible up front. NFIP policies have a limit of $500,000 on building, and ours all vary, and $500,000 on contents. And those vary as well. The NFIP flood coverage pays at actual cash value with depreciation applied, subject to the maximum limit stated on the policy, and excess is replacement cost minus the deductible. HUB did some analysis for us, and if a flood destroys all the insured building and contents, the city would receive an estimated maximum of $27,327,820, except for everything located in the basements. And as I mentioned previously, certain criteria has to be met for coverage to be applied in the basement. For example, equipment has to be plugged in. The total replacement costs of all covered buildings under the flood policies equate to $96,766,677. Next slide. Our broker indicates an estimated average of 2.9% discount could be attained by adding a $5,000 deductible or a 5.6% on a $10,000 deductible. Last year, our total flood insurance policy equated to $137,055 for both coverages. In 2024, we budgeted $145,000 out of the risk management fund. The 2024 NFIP and excess flood insurance is projected to increase beyond that budgeted line item amount. We are not required to have flood insurance, even though we participate in the Community Rating System, CRS, which is a voluntary incentive program that recognizes and encourages community floodplain management practices that exceed the minimum requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program. And currently, this program provides a 5% discount on flood insurance premiums for Ottawa residents. FEMA disaster assistance is only available when a federal disaster is declared by the President. City staff would seek recovery funds through KDEM, and KDEM assists local governments through the application process of FEMA's programs. Legal considerations. Blaine-Finch City Attorney stated there are no legal considerations other than buildings previously covered by flood insurance will not be covered. We would not have that coverage. The recommendation that is before you is that all covered buildings are in Zone X, where there are areas of minimal or moderate flooding hazards. There is a risk of a flood, but the probability is low. The City Commission has two options. Option one is due to the overpayment of insurance, low probability of a flood, and disaster assistance available through FEMA, cancel all flood insurance policies. and the savings of those budgeted expenses would be set aside to build a reserve for building replacement and contents. Option 2, maintain all flood insurance policies due to possible risk. Over the next year, the staff will evaluate our property and casualty coverages. And at this time, you can take action at this meeting or refer the item XA to the Wednesday, the next scheduled meeting, April
I just
3rd.
had two quick questions on, and Brian, maybe help us on this. What, one mill, wasn't it right around 140,000 last year? Pretty close to that, okay, pretty close to that. And also, did we find out about Osawatomie? Do they have any kind of coverage?
They do not.
They do not.
And they, when the levy system went in, and I believe the mayor, or Commissioner Crowley can confirm this as well, that when the levy went in, it's when they canceled and have been out without coverage since.
So that was probably 1960, maybe?
63, 64.
64, okay. Okay. Any other questions or discussion on this topic?
I just want to point out the importance of the money being set aside into a reserve account. So it wouldn't be going toward premiums. It would be there in the event of an uh-oh.
That's what I mean, that would go, yeah, it would stay here. We would still expense the item, but it would stay in our bank account. I guess I kind of like that idea rather than paying for the insurance itself. That's my preference, but I'd sure like to hear each of the commissioners on your opinion on this topic.
Michelle, have we looked at, under the financial considerations, the deductible changes? Just looking at with this year, if we'll be over that 145,000. I know it's not an option down below, but if we looked at increasing that deductible to 10,000 to stay under the budgeted amount potentially?
We have not had that conversation. We with the broker.
Okay.
Um,
And is
there-
that's for
there's-
like this current year of
Yeah.
5.6%
Yes.
if we were to drop them?
Yes, that was on last year's premiums.
Mr. Mayor, I had a conversation with the Osawatomie city manager earlier this week, just to ask him the question that you had asked last week. Our HR director, Stegman, reached out to him, I believe, a week or two ago. He just didn't have the information at that point, so you provoked him to find that out for me when I called him earlier this week. So he did mention that as far back as he could find, they have not had flood insurance. He said that, as you mentioned last week, that they have a pretty secure levee system and that he has a lot of faith in what is built. Even mentioned the '07 flooding that happened in that area and that it really didn't extend to a point that it was a detriment to any of their buildings or anything. He did ask that if we do decide to eliminate our flood insurance, that we do not jinx them. He would appreciate that.
Good point, yeah. That would make a difference, you're right. That's true, and I think our levee system's been tested, I don't know how many times since it's been built. I'm guessing pretty close to 10 times, maybe a dozen, I'm not sure. We've closed the floodgates, and it's certainly it's held, and that's what we wanted.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I could be absolutely wrong on this, and I will stand corrected if this is the case. If our current estimate for replacement value on all of our contents and buildings is approximately $96 million, at a savings of $137,000 a year, it will take us 690 years to come up with the replacement costs of what our buildings and contents are valued at today. I'm not thinking that they'll probably still be valued at that in 690 years, but it could happen. It concerns me, and I honestly don't know how I want to go with this, because I recognize that there is a $500 deductible for building, and there's a $500,000 deductible for a building for the building itself, and a $500,000 deductible for contents. Also, that's $1 million deductible, but $1 million to replace a building and contents is a small pittance compared to the $96 million it would cost us estimated if we were to have to rebuild everything that we have today. I'm concerned that some of the programs that were outlined to us today are grant programs. And as we all know, grants are not guaranteed, and they will be competitive. And most likely, if there is a massive flood, we will not be the only ones applying. So there's no guarantee that that is ours to have. And grants, as you will know, I'm well versed in that, are not a guarantee. It's of concern to me. This is of concern to me. So I'm not sure how I want to go with that, but I just want the public to know that I've really thought about it. And I've thought about, I recognize that it could be $137,000 savings, but the second we cancel it, if there's a massive flood, do we have $96 million to replace what we have? And I'd say we do not. I mean, I've been here long enough to do the budget. I'd say we don't have an extra $96 million in the budget to do that.
Anybody else? Other
And
commissioners? Go
Michelle,
ahead.
on that, you had listed that for FEMA disaster assistance, it's only available if you have flood coverage, or primarily for that.
Just for the FMA program, you would get disqualified for that particular grant program.
Thank you.
Michelle, help me out. What buildings are we all talking about here? I know City Hall,
City Hall, all
Fire
of there's water plant buildings,
so wastewater and the
Wastewater.
treatment plant.
water plant, the main power plant building, and
Fire
Go back,
department,
'cause it
police
was in the-
department.
electric production, new plant, all of the wastewater treatment plant or WRF buildings, and fire, city hall, police, and there is a river lift sewage pump station that we added.
Is the
in
Carnegie in there?
In 19, no,
Okay,
we removed them in 16.
thank you.
Mhm.
Now, the 96 million, again, that would be if the flood came and just wiped the buildings completely off the foundations. We had to rebuild, start all over. We couldn't refurbish. That doesn't consider the cost of refurbishing something that's been flooded, cleaned up, but fixed back up again, right? Or is that?
Replacement cost
Yeah.
estimate.
Well, I would say that there's a lot of other ways you would need a complete rebuild, aside from being completely washed away. Structural issues, I mean, obviously engineers could speak to all of that, but I would assume it would not need to be a flood that literally washes buildings away for that. And along with that, with Commissioner Kaler's concerns, I was looking at $27 million of our coverage is 188 years of premium. And while it's a saving of, potentially $150,000, that will be increasing over time, but under $200,000 for the next few years at least, I have a hard time swallowing if in 10 years we pass on to our predecessor, people who follow us in these seats, and there's ever a flood, and our community's hit with $100 million potentially. When I look back on my actions sitting up here today for $200,000 savings a year, while that's money in our quote unquote our pocket that would stay in the city, is that short-sighted of us to not think about future generations and the potential for, what would essentially be a catastrophic hit? Obviously, if that actually happened, it would be catastrophic for the city, but what would that mean to our residents if, we're trying to come up with $100 million to potentially restore some of these? Obviously, City Hall could be probably further down the list than I would think wastewater treatment would be and water treatment. But I think there would be a significant impact to residents' day-to-day lives after a flood, were this ever to happen, if we don't have insurance.
And just so I know, when we're talking about a flood, we're saying there's going to be a levee breach of
Yeah.
some kind, right? Okay. 'Cause
I would assume.
Okay, yeah.
Well, and if I can play devil's advocate here, though, what if in 691 years, the people look back and say, man, I wish they would have canceled insurance because nothing's happened? I mean,
I won't be
we're
here,
both-
Commissioner Crowley.
Well, as
So-
Commissioner Clayton said, I just want to say that as my time on the table, that maybe that impact could be felt in 691 years. So I just, I know we're all thinking about worst case scenario, which is certainly our job and what we should be doing, but, there's also the opposite that could completely happen too.
Anyone else? Pro Tem Allen?
I'm kind of torn on it. I mean, it's obviously a risk to cancel the insurance and put the money in an account or, for a rainy day. But it is painful. How long have we been paying for flood insurance specifically?
2012.
2012.
Mhm.
I know, and I just look at just the risk, I mean, it's just so minimal of something to happen, and that's what I'm looking at, just that we know we don't have earthquake insurance. Well, why not earthquake insurance? Because there's a very unlikely chance that ever happening as well, though we've had a few shakes, but nothing of a magnitude to bring buildings down. So, we can insurance ourselves to death, and that's always one of those things, insurance, yeah, you hate paying that premium, but if you need it, you need it, and I understand that part of it. But just in my opinion, I think my opinion would be that we just keep it in the budget, build up a reserve, and maybe even someday, some future commission would completely eliminate that, which I would be in favor of. But as a compromise, at the maximum, I would say to drop it and keep the money coming in to a reserve account until such time we decide we don't even need that. And I'm just looking again, the 0.2%, that's pretty low risk. Maybe we need more time on this. Anybody else want to have any other options or ideas?
Sorry, what was your thought? Your thought was to eliminate coverage, but then,
Keep the reserve money
Keep the-
coming
okay.
in. Right. And then we can let some future commission, whoever that may be, decide to completely axe that. I'm just looking at this, this 1 mil approximate, and I think that's we hear people talking about our mill levy's too high, and here's an example of a way to cut it.
But we're not cutting the mill. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still taking in the
Yes.
money. I mean, I don't want the public to say, oh, yeah, so hey, they canceled their flood coverage, so it's not gonna go down a mill.
Yeah, I said that, I know
Yeah.
what you're saying there. But eventually, I'm saying some future commission may decide to completely eliminate the budget item, and therefore there's about 1 mil savings there.
Do you know if we had to pay out anything prior to 2012 did we have any flood?
Prior to 2012?
Mhm.
No, I do not.
And any since?
There was one claim in 2019, and it was the police department.
And I guess
And
this
it
would be
was for
kind of a difficult-
remediation. It was around $13,000 that the policy paid for the basement.
Okay.
They
So
did
the-
determine that that was attributed to flood.
So the
And-
policy paid 13,000, which would, if we
13,600.
did away with it, would come out of the reserve fund.
That would, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, probably risk management, I would assume.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be okay with, as stated here, wait until at least next week's agenda on the 3rd to have another discussion and maybe making a decision then.
Okay, sure. And I wonder if there's any way we can find out, I know there's got to be other cities along levees besides Osawatomie. There's other levees in Kansas. I don't know if, is Lawrence, they have a levee system? I can't think who else has one like ours. And I don't know how we even find out to see what other cities are doing, Council Grove, or I don't know, others around that could be. It'd be interesting to find out if there's a way to go to the Corps of Engineers and ask them what other cities are near your levee systems and maybe find out what they do with flood insurance. I guess I'm not surprised Osawatomie didn't have it, and they haven't had it since the 51 flood, when it worked 64 when the levee system was built. And it's worked for them, and they've been able to save a lot of money over those 60 years, so, yeah.
Okay, I just want to share, we do have one policy renewing on the 10th of April,
10th.
and then the rest in late April.
Do you happen to know which particular?
One of them's an NFIP policy that's renewing on the 10th.
Okay.
Is it for a particular building?
It is, but I can't off the top of my head tell you which building that
It's,
is.
I mean, it's beginning, we'll need to get this fully renewed.
Right.
That week, because it's essentially for a group of buildings, and we'll have a second one following a few weeks later. So, you know, the discussion, I know we've talked about the 96 million, and I don't think we need to have a decision today. And I don't think it really even changes everyone's position, but I want to just point out that it's essentially the coverage amounts that 26 million, not the 96. So I think that's important to know.
And
27,
Michelle,
I'm sorry.
Sorry. On that, you gave us kind of last week the breakdown per building. Is there any, could we basically, are they all ad hoc? Could we cancel 2 or 3 of the buildings, leave the rest? Is there
Yes.
potential just kind of?
We can.
Okay.
And we did that in 16.
When we got
either
reincarnated.
added coverage or deleted it or enhanced the policy to the buildings.
But the 10th is another meeting, but that'd be too late on that date, I guess. We need to decide next meeting, I assume, right? Okay.
And just so that you know, we as staff, in the absence of direction to countermand status quo, if we were forced to renew at a deadline, we would just renew, continue the discussion for essentially, do we want to renew for 20, next year at that time? So since we would lack a vote or direction on changing our status quo.
If I could add, the broker said that we could cancel at any time if we renewed as
Okay.
well.
And get a refund of premium? And get a refund of premium on that, I guess, prorated?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think something I would potentially like to see, and I think Michelle's done the work to get the data, would, maybe be looking at an option, from my perspective, of almost keeping water treatment, wastewater. So were this ever to happen, there's still clean drinking water, some of those services would be kind of the first things back. If we decide to potentially cancel or just kind of look at a third option, I think City Hall, Police Department, Fire Department are obviously integral buildings. But to day, our citizens, I would assume, if we ever had this, water and wastewater would probably be the things that I would think we would want first. And if someone believes differently, I would love to be corrected. But just as a potential option, if we're looking to save some money on that and build some reserves.
So you're
And-
looking at.
So
just kinda
essentially canceling everything,
picking-
yeah, maybe like if we decide we don't need the power plant since we're getting a lot of power off the grid, or, what are our options in terms of what would be our, if we tiered them, most important as 1 to 7, in terms of buildings, is water treatment, wastewater our top 2? In my mind, maybe just thinking about that, but spitballing, if, we want to pull in some other thoughts on that, to maybe keep those, and then, other more administrative buildings not keep the coverage on if we decide to go that route. Would just as a tertiary option be something I'd be interested in.
I'd be interested in having that conversation too, but I'd like to include electric production. I think that's an integral part too, and certainly something that if was flooded would cost a significant amount of money.
Pro Tem Allen gave me a list here of other cities with levee systems. Kansas City, of course, I didn't think about that. Hutchinson, Topeka, Frankfurt, Manhattan, and Lawrence. So there could be some other cities there we can ask about if we could find out what their flood insurance coverage is. Here's what I'm saying. I'm thinking we're going to call them, we're going to find out we're the only ones covering flood insurance. We're the only ones that are protecting our properties, which we maybe don't need to. I'm not saying we need to follow suit with them, but that kind of a percentage, or that number of cities maybe without flood insurance kind of makes me wonder, are we smarter than them or what? I don't know. That's the question, I guess. And so maybe we can find out those as well for next week if we could. So, all right. Yep.
I'm wondering if City Manager Silcott could actually, you could probably send it out on the City Manager listserv and get some pretty quick responses. If not, the league could certainly ascertain that data for us.
That'd be good. That's good.
I was hoping you weren't asking me to make some more phone calls.
And
Give
then
you the list.
Commissioner
Thank you,
Crowley,
appreciate
we just should send all those to Commissioner Crowley. And he has
Please.
no extra things to do in his
Nothing.
life, so he'll need to do that too.
Very good. Okay, we'll talk about it next week. Michelle, again, thank you for all your work on that. Very good. Okay. Move on to item 11, new business. Review the monthly reports for February 2024. First one up be Franklin County Development Council, Executive Director Bean. And are you on here or online? Maybe he's not here. Okay. Let's go on then. How about Ottawa Library, Executive Director? Here she is, Terry's right there. Everybody had a chance to look over those numbers and anything to report?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for allowing me to come up and talk to you. I wanted to highlight the report that talks about the 2023 numbers that was included in our report. Each year I have to do a statistical report to the State Library of Kansas. This is an infographic that shows some of that, just a small picture of some of those stats that we turn in at the end of the year. And I wanted to really highlight the fact that we had 821 programs and 11,445 people at those programs throughout 2023. That is an average of 2.6 programs per day. So our staff works pretty diligently to provide programs and services for the Ottawa community. We also have over 2 million items in our collection with our 50-some consortiums, libraries that we're a part of, where we can get materials from other libraries. And you can see those little buses that talk about how many items we lent out and how many items we got in. And that's part of that consortium where we are borrowing from libraries outside of that consortium, actually, is what those buses represent. When there's items that we don't have and no other of those 50-some libraries have, we reach outside of that and we can lend and borrow from other libraries. Have 9,344 people who have library cards, and we had 110,000 people walk through our doors. And that's a significant number, and it definitely shows that our staff is very busy day in and day out. As far as materials that are in-house, we have 65,769 items at year end. And then something that's not on these reports that I just wanted to mention, I know some people are aware of this, but beginning in 2017, the Franklin County Children's Literature Fest came underneath the umbrella of the Friends of the Ottawa Library. And so we have been part of that ongoing committee since 2017, and we're very happy about that. We think it's a good fit, not only for the Friends, but for the Ottawa Library to promote that. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, we bring in usually 6 to 8 authors each year that come to Ottawa University, and we bring all 3rd and 5th graders throughout the Franklin County communities into there, and they get to actually meet and listen to those authors. They could be authors, illustrators, presenters, and they talk about their craft and share what they do. And it's something that all the children really enjoy. It's a great event, and it's been going on since 2002 in our community. Since 2002, we did not have a Lit Fest in 2020 due to COVID, but other than that, this will be our 21st year. We did add a Littles event a few years back where we bring in a performer for K through 2nd grade. And this year we're going to have What If Puppets at the OMA. And the actual Lit Fest is on May 8th at Ottawa University. The Littles event is on May 7th. But it's a great event and something that has a long-standing history. And just wanted to make you aware that we are highly involved in it. We have at least 4 staff members that serve on that committee. But
So how many libraries do we work with when we lend? total?
there's 52 or 53 in the consortium.
That's incredible. And of
Yeah.
those 9,344 cards that are issued, how many are on a little cardboard piece with a metal plate on it?
We don't have any more of those.
I still,
They were baby blue.
there's one, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was 001, my number, but anyway, okay, great. Any other questions for Terry? You're doing a good job, keep it up.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Proud of you. Thanks, Terry. Let's see, we'll move on to, who's next on that? Prairie Ponds? Main Street. Sarah's here. Hi, Sarah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So we are in full-blown Piccadilly mode. We knew whenever we started restructuring the program and coming back, we needed to have a signature fundraiser for Main Street. In doing that, I got to collaborating with some fellow Main Streeters, and a Piccadilly auction is kind of a Main Street commonly known thing. However, it has been proven that we've brought something different to the community, and that's what we wanted to do. Because what we're finding is that getting the education out there on what a Piccadilly is what we're working on now. So tickets are live. You can buy tickets. They're $25 a piece, or we do have sponsorship levels. A Piccadilly auction is a high-energy live auction where you can win valuable items for just quarters. Each auction item has a bid price ranging from 25 cents to $4. So when you want to bid on an item, you just put up your bid, and we'll hold up an item, whatever is on bid. Say it's a $50 item. We say it's 50 cents bid. You put your 50 cents in, and then your items, you're drawn at bingo style. So you are just at a lottery item, but essentially you could walk away with a $100 item for $1 or a $50 item for 50 cents. And then we as an organization would collect all of those bids that are pinned. So it's a little bit different, but fun. Our theme is Kentucky Derby, and we're encouraging people to dress up. It is a brunch style, so your ticket gets you brunch, and then we will have a cash bar as well. And yeah, it'll be an interactive event. Our MC is Mr. Mayor Skidmore, so if you want to come hear him as well.
I understand the enrollment went down once you announced that, so hopefully just.
We are also excited. We are being hosted at the new Lincoln Event Space,
yeah.
so that's a big thing as well. They are very much committed to being community partners, and we're excited to be hosted there. So I would also highlight that this on here is our ice cream social, and we had 157 participating individuals come through for ice cream in a matter of 2 hours.
Oh,
So that was fun. That's all I have.
Anybody
else?
have any questions of Sarah? Let me just ask real quick on this. I think I read somewhere about the IWW loans, and that there's a possibility of a state pullback. We've got about 77,000 available. Am I understanding that right? And
So there is, we had to do a yearly report on the IWW loans, and the state of Kansas has been pushing to try and get more funds because not all Main Street communities have the IWW funds. Whenever they pull the Main Street program, I believe that was in 18 or 19, they stopped it for a little bit. They were no longer giving out funds. We, fortunately, are a community that does have funds. And so Senator Tolan asked for an emergency report kind of thing, and just to make sure that communities that have them are using them. I will say on our end, because we had not been an active community Main Street for a couple years, it was not actively being a sought-out program. We did have loans out there. I would like to report, though, that we do have applications in, and we are working on getting that applications out there and approving loans currently. And so the state doesn't feel like it's going to be pulled from us, but obviously that was kind of a scary, we don't want to lose that, because that money, how that works is when we loan it out, once it's paid back, it stays in the community and we can continue to loan that out.
Very good. Glad to hear that. Hope that works out for you guys, and hope they
Yes.
continue to get the loans out to the businesses that
Yes.
need them, so fantastic. Any other questions? All right, Sarah, thank you very much.
I'm going to give you guys each an invitation.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Now, when is that again? Write that down.
thank you.
All right, thank you. You're doing a good job promoting that. That's great. Okay. Vanessa, tell us about Prairie Pods.
Lucky last. Well, we're officially through some growing pains of our Manhattan location. So as of yesterday, we're fully staffed out there, which feels great. That includes a fundraising coordinator. So we have someone that's just full-time fundraising from that community. We know there's good opportunities out there to build similar partnerships that we have here in Ottawa. So we're excited to see that. We've changed the way that we are reporting our impact to our communities now. So this is the Franklin County Impact Report, which you would have seen last month as well for January. We have a similar one for the city of Manhattan. So this report doesn't show any animals being served at the Manhattan location. This is just our community here in Franklin County. But it's I took some advice from Mayor Pro Tem Allen when she said she wanted more pictures. I was like, yes, I have tons of great pictures. I didn't know anyone cared about that. So I've loaded it up with pictures now and graphs, and it's kind of a better way to look at it. And we also share this with our board as well. So, yeah, I think we're through a lot of the difficult kind of onboarding. We've joined up with a lot of communities out there, so we've now got contracts with Potawatomi County, the city of Wamego, city of St. George, city of Ogden. We're very close to having Riley County on board, so we're just trying to have no gaps out there. We want to have everyone have access to our programs, so it's doing great. I want a third animal shelter if you know of anyone.
Yeah, you're ready for another.
If you know of any communities that don't want their city to run their shelter anymore, I would love to run it. So point them my way.
I see your fundraiser at the Sunset Zoo. I'm familiar with that. I've been there a couple times, but a long, long time ago. I guess it's still operational, so that's good news.
Yeah, we're going to be in the Rotunda, which only holds about 125 people. This is our first gala in Manhattan, so if we sold 125 tickets to our first gala out there, we would be so ecstatic. You know, we know these things take time to build, and, you know, we can definitely sell 125 tickets here in Ottawa, but nobody knows who Prairie Paws is in Manhattan. So we're building the brand, and that's going to be our first kind of in-person fundraiser out there. And then our next one for Franklin County is our golf tournament, our next big fundraiser out here. So it's doing great.
That's fantastic.
On the golf tournament, is there a reason you didn't use the photo of the winners from last year?
Did you want to be I didn't want a photo of people soaking wet.
I mean, we were soaking wet, but I was a little sad it wasn't us.
The photos from last year made it look like the worst fundraiser you've ever seen in your whole life. We had nonstop torrential rain for the entire day because anytime we do an outdoor event, we can make the heavens open and drown us.
Should have that in August.
Yeah, we should.
So Happy Gilmore, you're in the picture, I guess?
Well, we did. Yeah, we were
Okay.
one of two teams to finish because it rained so hard.
That is
So
a
we-
cartoon picture of you, Zach.
That
You
is
know
true.
that, right?
That's right. Very good. That's great.
But that is exciting to see the trails and stuff done out there. I'm sure spring as it's getting muddy and stuff, it's really nice walking the dogs and not.
Yeah, it's about a quarter mile around the outside of the land out there. That was done by Bones Landscaping, and that was part of a grant that we actually received in 2023. No, in 2022, we received a grant to do those, and it took us this long to get it done. We had some drainage issues and things out there, but yeah, we finally got those in. We received a grant in 2023 to expand all those front play yards. So as you drive into Prairie Paws now, all those play yards are about twice the size, and there's a third one as well. So much more space for the dogs to run around out there too.
And in Manhattan, now, I refresh my memory, was it a municipal-run animal shelter previously?
It was.
And now it's not. And so I'm guessing that it's Manhattan 4 times, 5 times the size of Ottawa. It's going to be a much larger service and much larger number of animals to deal with. Are you starting to see that?
You know, our numbers are neck and neck right now out there. So as far as animals coming in is neck and neck with Manhattan. They have better rates on adoption, so they're able to adopt them out quicker, which is good because their facility is smaller.
Okay.
So they need to move animals quickly than what
I
we
see.
do. So their length of stay is about half ours.
Okay.
So they're they're starting to see more volume than we are. I wish I knew about the flood insurance question because the shelter out there is right on the other side of the levee. It's right on the river in Manhattan, our shelter, our Manhattan shelter, and I have no idea if the city has flood insurance on that building.
We'll come to the next meeting, we'll find out. For you.
Yeah, it's still a city-owned building. They lease it to us for $1 a year, so
Wow.
feels like a pretty good deal.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
Good job on that.
Yeah.
All right, any other question for Prairie Paws? We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Vanessa, thanks very much. Appreciate that. We'll move on to item 11B then.
Resolution approving a final plat and accepting the dedication of all easements and rights-of-way within the former Fairview Vista Addition Northeast Village replat.
The Planning Commission has reviewed the final plat for the project at 1426 East Wilson and recommends approval. The parcel will be developed into 40 single-family townhomes. And I'm guessing Director, oh, go ahead. Nisha's going to do it, but refer to you, so you go, I'm sorry.
Planner Zach Martin will be presenting.
Go ahead, Zach.
I just stood up.
Yeah.
Stood up and wandered to the front.
charge.
All right, as you have stated, this is an application for a final plat for the development of 40 single-family dwelling townhomes on the currently vacant property. If we can get to the next slide. So staff did present the findings at a special planning commission meeting on February 29, 2024, and did recommend approval of the plat. I apologize, it says Kansas State Bank on there. It is for Northeast Village. The Planning Commission approved the motion to accept the staff findings as their own and recommend approval of the plat. On the next slide. So on this slide, you can see the general location. You may be familiar with it. We have brought the rezoning of this property up in recent months, as well as the conditional use permit to actually allow for the townhomes to be developed on that site. But as a refresher, on the left-hand side, you have an aerial view of the general location of the property at 1426 East Wilson. In the center, you have the current zoning of the property. It is not reflected in our PDF zoning map. It does still label it as commercial, but the zoning has been approved, and it is R2 medium-density residential. And on the right-hand side, we have the future land use, which does designate this area as commercial and residential. All right. On the next slide, you will be able to see the final plat itself. As I mentioned before, this has been reviewed several times by city staff and has gone through the Planning Commission, but it does conform to our subdivision regulations as far as our review has gone, and this is just an example or an overview of that final plat. All right, on the next slide, as I stated, it has gone through several review cycles by city staff to ensure that all the requirements have been met, including necessary improvements and dedication of easements. And the proposed plat, as mentioned before, would allow for the development of the approved site plan for the Northeast Village project, which would create additional housing opportunities within the city of Ottawa. And based on discussion with the city attorney, the approval of the final plat for Northeast Village will not incur any financial or legal repercussions for the city. And the final slide, staff finds that based on the findings and recommendation of the city staff and planning commission, it is the recommendation that the resolution for the final plat for Northeast Village be approved or be referred to the April 3rd, 2024 city commission meeting for continued deliberation and consideration if necessary.
Okay. Any questions of Zach on this?
I see on there, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I see the adjustment made for that parcel to the south where the setback for the garage for the 8 feet.
Yes, we were able to get that adjusted, and the line has been reflected on the final plat, and all of that was taken care of.
Yeah.
I was thinking it certainly conforms to what we need in our community, more housing, that we hear that all the time. So this certainly is a good addition, I would say. Also that it is fairly consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. So, you know, I think I like that idea, part of it. But, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for us.
Mr. Mayor, I too agree. I think this is a great project. I'm excited to see it get started and up and running. And saying that, I would be, make the motion to approve item 11B on our agenda.
And I'll second.
Is there a second? Any other discussion on this? If not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. I see Mr. Bohais here, so I just want to thank you very much for your investment in our community. You've been looking forward to it. We'll move item letter C.
Appointment to Kansas Municipal Energy Agency Board, Director 2 position.
The appointment is for a 2-year term in the Director 2 position of the board. David Hunsaker, Electric Production Superintendent, was appointed October of 23 to fill Dennis Tharp's unexpired term to April 30 of 24. And Melissa's back.
I'm back. Thanks, Mayor and Commissioners. Today I'm here to talk with you about the biannual selection of the KMEA Board of Directors 2 position. If you recall, back in October of 2023, the governing body appointed Dave Hunsaker to fill the vacancy left by Dennis Tharp's retirement. And that term expires April 30th, 2024. So I'm back before you today to seek guidance on reappointment of Dave Hunsaker to the Director 2 position. And so with that, there are no financial impacts for consideration of this item. We did provide to you the KMEA Article 5 Board of Directors Section 5.1 through 5.7 for your review. At this time, staff would recommend that you deliberate to approve Dave Hunsaker to the KME Board of Directors position 2 and either take final action today or for this item to next week. We do have a deadline of April the 4th to get this submitted back.
Let me pretty quickly on this. Any questions or concerns anybody have? If not, entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner.
I move that we approve Dave Hunsinger as a member of the KMEA Board of Directors.
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? If there's not, let's have a roll call vote again, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. Motion carries. So, David, congratulations and thank you for your service. Move on to item D.
Comprehensive Fire Department Study.
Following a request for proposed process, CPSM was selected to conduct an operational and administrative analysis of the Ottawa Fire Department. Mr. Icona, Manager and Fire of EMS for CPSM, will present a summary of the study.
Thank you. I just wanted
Yes.
to introduce and kind of give some background. We have Mike Icona here, and he represents the Center for Public Safety Management, which is a consortium of the International Association of Fire Chiefs and International City County Management Association. And this was a study that was undertaken utilizing federal funding through the ARPA funds, and was undertaken on February 1st of 2023. And with that, in your staff report, we have some brief key observations in history and a link to the report. And just at this time, I'll turn it over to Mike for his overview. Thank you, Mike.
Very good. Xavier.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Commission. My name is Mike Iacona. I work for the Center of Public Safety Management. We do fire, EMS, police, emergency management, 911 system analysis. My background is in fire. I spent 38 years in the fire service, primarily in Florida and Arizona. 18 years as fire chief. I've probably done about 50 of these studies throughout the U.S. and Canada. And it's a privilege to be here today because it's a great community. It's especially nice that it's springtime. I still had snow on the ground in Colorado when I left there. But if we could have the first slide, please. Or maybe I should do it. Just an overview of what we're going to talk about this afternoon, how we do the study, the methodology, some observations about the organization, a series of findings and recommendations that we provide. When we do these studies, we identify areas of improvement, and then we areas of what we call best practices. And you'll see, if you look through the study, both of those observations, because it's not fair to many of these organizations to just criticize, their negative points or areas of improvement, but really elevate those areas that they do well in. And I can assure you, Ottawa is doing extremely well. We also did an analysis of a fire station relocation, and then we'll open up some questions. Next slide. In terms of our methodology, we look at both the organizational structure and how resources are deployed. In your system, it's very limited. There's 2 stations, 1 engine operating at 1 station with 3 personnel, and another engine operating at a second station with 1 or 2 personnel, depending upon the staffing levels. That's minimal. That's a minimal level of operation. We elevated some concern about the 1-person staffing because in this business, you operate in what's called a buddy system. You're in a hazardous environment. You don't want to do that individually. In fact, it's a violation of OSHA law if you do that. If you go into a hazardous environment by yourself. So it's always a two-person, and you're at a disadvantage when Station 2 is being operated with only one person. We did a number of on-site meetings with both the staff of the city, the fire department, neighboring agencies, dispatch, emergency management, things of that nature. We also provide a detailed workload. What's going on? How many calls? What types of calls? How much time you're spending on the calls? Fire loss, things of that nature. It's very detailed. There's probably 50 pages in this report of just data analysis. And then we follow up with the staff in terms of open communication about what's said and if it's accurate, and to put it in a context that's very appropriate for your community. Next slide, please. As I said, it's an excellent organization. Your personnel are dedicated, and there's a quality leadership. I had the privilege of working with Chief Matthias before he left, a wonderful individual, really committed to the service, and you're very fortunate to have him had him lead this organization in his tenure. As I said, there's insufficient staffing. We think you should adjust that. We provided some options to minimize the cost of those increments. There's some things being done with time off that may be offset by some enhanced wages or payment for those services. You do have a need for capital infrastructure in the fire stations. You were talking about a flooding problem. Station 1 has issues without flooding. You know, there's problems in their basement areas, you know, during certain times of the years. And there's a number of issues associated with Station 2, which is a jointly operated facility that actually belongs to Franklin County EMS, in which you co-locate. One thing I did want to say about that arrangement, though, because you have co-locations with Franklin County EMS in both stations, that's a very positive work environment. The need for these agencies to cooperate and to commiserate with one another is important, and you're doing that, which is one of those best practices that we identified. There's some need for enhanced or improved maintenance of the capital. These fire trucks are $700,000 to $800,000 to purchase new. Ladder trucks are pushing $2 million, as you know. These are major items that are difficult to fund in tight budget times, and there's a way to prolong their life, one being a very aggressive progressive maintenance program. And we think that there's an opportunity for improved partnerships with emergency management, county emergency management. When you talk about flooding or major disasters, you had a windstorm earlier this year, that cooperation, that preparedness together is essential, and we identify opportunities for greater interaction with county emergency management as part of this study. Next slide, please. In terms of the organizational management, we think the department can utilize some administrative staff, whether that's a part-time person coming in several days a week or 20 hours a week. They need that support for reporting, for documentation of activities, keeping training records, hydrant checks, things of that nature. That administrative capacity is lacking in the organization, and we recommended that be addressed. There's also a need for quantitative analysis of what's going on, performance measurement, things like the types of calls that are being run, how much time is being spent on those calls, the breakout of emergent, non-emergent calls. The reporting process of these things are important, particularly as you look at that over time and you want to see what that trend analysis. It helps you, gravitate towards changes if you're seeing the data over time and you're seeing certain deficits or indicators that things can be done better. There's, again, I said, an emergency management component. that should be addressed, and there's accreditation, which sort of pushes you into that mode of doing this type of reporting, doing this type of analysis, and we think that's a good forum for the organization to improve in those areas. Next slide, please. Staffing and deployment, again, we recommend that minimum daily staffing be established at 5 personnel. Right now, it's 4. We also recommend the use of EMS squad vehicles. This is sort of like a pickup truck with compartmentation that reduces the wear and tear on the bigger apparatus. It's 5 times more expensive to operate an engine and a ladder truck than it is one of these vehicles. And there's the ability to jump from one vehicle to the other to reduce that maintenance and prolong the life expectancy of these more expensive vehicles. We also looked at your volunteer cadre of personnel. You do operate with a support group of volunteers, but it hasn't been as dependable as it could be. And that's not uncommon. This is not an era of volunteerism anywhere in the nation. It's hard to keep volunteers trained and on your department roster. So we think there may be an option with some reserve employees amongst the city employees. And we're not talking about a lot, maybe 5, 7 of these employees that you train, provide some incentive, financial incentive, and they could come in and assist during those more catastrophic events. You do have a fairly large workforce, upwards to 170 people. We think getting 5, 7, 10 people in that group over time could be very, very beneficial to the organization. Next slide, please. In terms of training, in the promotional process, the promotional process for fire departments is very aggressive. So if you require certain certifications and trainings as part of those promotional process, you really expand the capacity and the aptitudes of those employees. So we think adding these requirements for certification and college education in the promotional process is a viable method to draw that skill set out and inject it into the process. Program management duties, fire departments are notorious for emergency personnel and administrative personnel. The administrative personnel do all the logistical stuff, the administrative duties, that's hose checks, purchasing, ladder checks, there's a lot of maintenance processes, and the emergency personnel typically come in, do their emergency work, and go home. We think that there's opportunities, particularly in a career development mode, to have people assume these duties, and how they do these duties are considerations for promotion. So these are the program management duties, and we identify probably 20 or 30 of them that are typically done in this fashion, and we think that can be very viable here in Ottawa. Skills testing on written tests, fire departments are notorious for doing training, but there's no testing or assessment. And it's very simple. After you do an exercise, after you do a drill, you actually have a test, and then that test is utilized in quantifying performance appraisals and things of that nature. So we recommend that you evaluate that as an option. Similar to that is the task book and step-up process. Task book are merely like an apprenticeship. When you're vying for a position, you have to demonstrate a competency, and then someone signs you off, yes, I know how to operate the aerial ladder, or yes, I've done this incident command training. And it writes you off and qualifies you again for promotion. Next slide, please. In terms of prevention, prevention is the key. You minimize fires through prevention. doing a full fire risk assessment of your critical infrastructure is needed in this department. It gives people an understanding of what that risk is, and they pre-plan and do tactical operations in preparation for an event in these structures. Fire prevention reporting, the numbers of inspections, the number of re-inspections, violations, plans review, the types, just quantifying that in a reporting methodology so that over time you know, well, last year we did 400 applications for permitting. This year we did 300 or 500. You know, you're able to quantify it over time. Hydrant testing, this is ensuring that those tests are done on a regular basis. It also helps in your insurance rating. When those hydrants are, it's a critical point that the ISO evaluates, and there was areas that could be improved on your rating. You had a class 3 rating, which is good. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the best, but you were so close to a class 2. I mean, it was like 2.5 points away. Hydrant testing would have, you know, capitalized most of those points. So it's something that we think you can evaluate. And then we also think there's an option for cost recovery that you make through your permitting fees and things like that, the operation of your fire prevention activities paid for through those services.
Mike, real quick on that hydrant testing, is that something more frequency through the year of draining or testing them is what would need, how many times a year would get it?
Annually.
Like each one, at least annually?
Annually. And then there's a maintenance process to see that they work, and then you test the flow capacity, you grease the hydrant caps so they're open, you open and flush and make sure they're working.
Good.
And you typically find ones that don't work for one reason or another, and that's the primary reason for doing it.
Good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Next slide, please. In terms of the fire station location, to summarize it, we looked at your current configuration, and we looked at the options of relocations, moving one way or the other for the 2 fire stations. And what we found out that realistically, your fire stations now are in very good positions, that with movement, you're not going to gain significantly in terms of your coverage. So our recommendation is improve the facility rather than relocate it. You talk about a cost. I mean, the cost of construction now of a fire station is over $500 a square foot. And when you start talking about land and, 10,000 square foot building, it gets very expensive. So, you have some difficulty with the co-location of Station 2 and the building being owned by the county or the hospital. I'm not sure who actually owns it. But, there may be some avenues for better facilities, because that station is really packed. They're on top of each other, and there's a need for additional spacing. And we looked at the building, and there appears that there can be some expansion of that building, towards the east. But, again, we didn't look at it with, an architectural qualification.
Just to make sure I understand, like on Station 1, if we moved it more north and east, it would be more centrally located with regard to the city limits, or it would?
Well, those were the options that we looked at. What we do is we put these fictitious locations on a map and then rerun the calls.
Okay.
And then see if that generates a better outcome than the existing one. So, we even tried a 1-station configuration. We plopped something, I forget what the street was, if it was 12th Street or something like that. And it was viable. It wasn't totally, unacceptable, but it would be a degradation of what you have now, because you've got 2 facilities that are properly spaced. But, you know, we were not recommending a one-station arrangement, but we did evaluate it. And basically, you know, a relocation is not going to give you, I don't think, the type of improvement that's worth the cost that it would be to take on that monumental capital expenditure. Okay, next slide. So in conclusion, as I started out, excellent organization. You're doing a job, and you have regional responsibilities. I mean, you're the only career fire department in all of the county. So, you know, you probably have about, I don't know, 4 or 5% of your calls are outside of the city, but there's a greater dependence on you as the, you know, the powerhouse, if you would, in the area. You know, the workload is manageable. You're handling about 2,000 calls a year. That equates to about 4 or 5 calls a year, but there's very seldom times that there's overlapping calls where 2 calls are happening at the same time. And the majority of the calls are EMS calls. So probably 70 to 75% of the calls are EMS related. We evaluated your fire calls. There were roughly about 60 fire calls a year. And these fire calls were broken out into structure fires and what they call outside fires. That can be a dumpster, that can be a shed, a grass fire, you know, so it was pretty split, but it only equates to about 2% of the overall call volume. And then of those structure fires that you had, we established a threshold of $25,000 in damage. And we quantify that because it's close to the national average, and it's indicative of a fire that's more substantive. It, you know, it requires some type of extinguishment effort. And in the year of the analysis we did, you had 3 during that time frame, and your average fire loss was about $9,000, whereas the national average fire loss is about $26,000. So you're lower than the average, and you have a low volume of incidents. And the majority of your call is EMS. Most calls are non-emergent. You know, probably 75% of the calls are not true emergencies. You know, they're incidents that require evaluation, some mediation, but they're not true emergencies. And what that does, it allows you to manage your workload better. You know, the second highest cause of injury to firefighters are accidents en route to calls with lights and sirens. So one of the things that we you know, really emphasize in our studies is scale down that response. You know, you don't have to go lights and sirens, you don't have to go through the red lights. When you know it's a non-emergent call, scale down that response. And they could do it through a logarithm in dispatch that is extremely effective. They ask a series of questions, and they rarely make a mistake, you know, in qualifying a call that's non-emergent when it really is emergent. You know, the mistakes can be made because, you know, there's human error involved, but it's the anomaly when that happens. And then the record keeping and the monitoring process. You can't go wrong with improving that, putting extra emphasis on that, getting periodic reports about what's going on and how well your organization is doing. Next slide.
Mr. Iacona?
Yes.
If we could go back real quick.
To what?
To the current workload is manageable and not expected to grow significantly in the near future. I hope that's wrong. And what I mean by that is we have 56 acres just on the south side of town that's a shovel-ready industrial park that we hope that an industry will will soon start building a building there, which in turn, the residual effect on that is bringing more families, homes, so on and so forth to our community. Was there ever a discussion about that?
Yes.
And if so, what were some suggestions that might have come up?
Well, the key suggestion, in reference to your point, is monitor your activities. You could see a spike in call activities. You could see a spike in your response times to these calls. You could see a spike in fire loss. You could see these trends if you're measuring. So start measuring, and then as time evolves, you'll know if your workload is exceeding your capacity. We quantified the amount of time that a unit is typically on a call. Okay, so I think it was around 20 minutes, and that includes the response time, which is probably a quarter of that. So when you're looking at 5 calls a day at 20 minutes a call, that's 100 minutes, or roughly, a little less than 2 hours in a 24-hour period. When a system is busy, you don't want units to be handling more than 8 to 9 hours a day of workload, actually on calls. That's when you would want to increase those resources. So monitoring these activity gives you, that benchmark of where you go. And there's a lag there. People cause calls. Industry and business are the lowest production of calls, primarily because they're typically operated for part of the day rather than 24 hours a day, like, those structures that generate calls. Nursing homes, there's a strong correlation to demographics on call activities. So, but it's a statistical game, but it's the key to analysis, data-driven decisions. You've heard that a million times. It works in this business.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess added to that, let me ask, I was thinking, I don't know if you were
Absolutely.
charged with this or not, with our industrial park, to find a new location. Is that part of your plan, or was it not part of your assignment?
We looked at it. We were specifically guided to evaluate, the response activities from the existing facility into that area, and it was appropriate.
Okay.
It was not excessive. Now, one of the best things about these buildings is they'll be new, and they'll be, fully sprinkled. They'll have automatic detection systems. The fire rate and the loss rate on those types of structures are nothing compared to an old building that's, occupied 24 hours a day.
Good.
Okay?
Did in the time of your study, did you at all consider the fact that, or consider that if the location is for our south fire station becomes no longer available to us,
Mm-hmm.
may there be some alternatives for us?
We identified, appropriate locations, but realistically, in that general vicinity, give or take half a mile would be your best option.
Okay.
Because it really is in a good location. And, it works better when the two systems are aligned, because most of the calls, they're going on together. And, after they come back, they could talk about this, they could, work on getting the equipment and the vehicles back in shape to run the next call. It really is conducive to a better system delivery. Okay. One of the things that we did as part of this process in working with Brian, he asked us to help in the fire chief recruitment process. So we scheduled this at this time to really coincide with the process of recruiting and interviewing candidates for that position. And we did that yesterday. So what I'm going to do in the next minute or so is just provide an overview of what we did. We did a national search. We went to state fire chiefs associations and online recruiters to advertise. We had a 30-day advertisement period. We had 28 applicants. Some of these applicants were from the Middle East, Africa. It was amazing, with online type recruiting. People, one guy submitted his application twice, so he must send them out to everybody. But we had 4 finalists that were interviewed yesterday. We used what was called a modified assessment center. What that means is there's a lot of role play. We had them do presentations with regard to topical issues inherent in the fire department and relevant here in Ottawa. What would you do if you were told to do this? Simulate a presentation to the city council on this topic. And then we had 3 panels that evaluated this work. We had a management panel, which was primarily city managers and chief administrative officers. And then we had peer panels, which were fire chiefs, deputy fire chiefs, EMS chiefs. And they provided an evaluation and a scoring of the applicants. Brian has that now in his lap. He has indicated he's going to take some time, probably the next 2 weeks, before he announces his selection. So generally, that's what we did with regard to the recruitment process. I think it was successful. We had a good group of candidates. We had 2 internal candidates vying for the position. Again, you'll get the results in the next few weeks. Last slide is questions.
Any questions anybody have?
One question back on the beginning of your recommendations. Could you just clarify for people who don't know what a Kelly Day is?
A Kelly Day is a means to reduce the work week. So if a firefighter, which works typically a 24-hour schedule, they're on 24 and they're off 48. So if you march that out over time, it averages 56 hours a week. So what some agencies do to reduce that work week is they give them a day off in certain increments in order to reduce that work week from 56 to 52 or 50. And depending upon how much it's reduced, that's the frequency of this off day. So it's just a means to, over time, average that work week lower than what it would be if it was normally 24/48. Does that answer? Okay.
All right. Thanks. Good question. Any other questions?
And I don't know who Kelly is. That's probably some guy up in New York.
Smart guy.
Yeah, he figured a day off, right?
Yeah, that's a good guy. Well, Mr. Gacona, thank you for a very thorough report. We appreciate that very much. And I appreciate your verbal side of it as well. So I guess we got a copy of this, Brian. We might look if we need later for reference. So very good. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you very much. Good job. Thank you. We'll go into our comments by the city manager now.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, want to update you on a couple of items. We have follow-up on our ongoing discussions with the Power of the Past regarding their wonderful gift offer for the donation of $50,000 toward constructing a new shelter house in Forest Park. That's a project that I know we're all excited to see come to fruition and to do so before their September 13th event. I want to make you aware that we did submit a letter of intent that outlines a couple of key parameters for that contribution, and they are currently reviewing that. And to again reiterate that we value the partnership and shared vision that underpins this project, and we'll obviously consider and look at incorporating any of the suggestions or modifications to that LOI that Power of the Past is currently reviewing. And then Director Hafley and I are meeting with Mr. David Reeves and other members of the club this upcoming Monday to discuss not only the specifics of the shelter project, but also the club's broader vision for the tractor show's future and how that shelter can help support that vision. And so I anticipate providing or presenting the letter of intent and the final shelter design with a more detailed budget and analysis at the April 3rd meeting, but certainly no later than the April 10th meeting for that. I include a detailed description of the fire chief hiring process. I just want to take time to thank Chief Richard Llewellyn of Lawrence, Chief Colby Staunchfield of District 1, Johnson County, Chief Brandon Beck of Emporia, Chief Tim Richard of Bonner Springs, Chief Christy Hilliker, who's our Franklin County EMS Director, and Chief Bill Stark, who's retired and is now a Secretary-Treasurer of the Kansas Association of Fire Chiefs, who participated on the peer panels. And then I'm also grateful to retired Overland Park City Manager Bill Ebel and retired City of Wichita Fire Division Chief and Sedgwick County Fire Chief Gary Kermode, who assisted on the management panel as well. We have some other vacancies that I'd like to make you aware of. We have our utility director position that closes on April 8th, and so far we've had 14 applicants with 4 meeting the minimum qualifications. Our communications director closes on April 5th, and we will review and schedule interviews shortly thereafter. We've had 33 applications with 7 meeting the minimum requirements. And then the water plant superintendent positions open until filled, which I had April 5th in there. But we currently have 16 applicants, and Dan and his team are interviewing finalists as we currently speak. So I hope to have an announcement on a filling by the next commission meeting or soon thereafter. Many of you may have seen some of the, if you're traveling by the viaduct, you may have seen some of the homeless individuals that have been camping out there. So I wanted to just address that at this time, and to make you aware that Neighborhood Services Director Neese is coordinating the city organization for a discussion and assessment regarding the long-term chronic impact of homelessness in Ottawa, the community, and our organization, and how we can better respond with protocols for a timely and effective response while maintaining a compassionate manner as these incidents arrive. And I also point out that there are several opportunities to receive additional information and discussion on the current problem that's facing not just Ottawa, but this entire area and globally. As you know from National League of Cities, this is something that homelessness and affordable housing seem to be the banner that we're all facing pressure on right now. And so I've got some dates there for items that Lucas is also working with, which is the April 17th First United Methodist Church conversation, and that's going to address specifically the chronic situation in Franklin and Osage counties. There's a homelessness conference, which is a statewide conference on the 23rd and 24th in Lawrence, and there's some information for that, including some breakout sessions that you can sign up for. And if you're interested in attending in person, I'll have Glora in touch to help coordinate that activities in your enrollment. So I will also, it's something that, again, since we're all addressing for my Kansas City County Management Conference in Lawrence, the week of last week in April, at April 25th and 26th, we're going to have a couple of sessions on that, because cities have to deal with not only the environmental aspects, but also the service demand. And there's a real bifurcation for individuals who are homeless between the minority, but truly folks in need, which is the chronic, long-term, 5 or so % of our homeless population, with the remainder as a more acute, shorter term, even short duration. So those folks can tend to utilize our civic and social capital institutions for short-term help as they've lost a job or have experienced a loss of shelter due to the loss of job or domestic issues. And so those are, most of our resources are geared toward helping those folks, but yet we have that number of folks that need long-term assistance, often medical and mental assistance. And I know we have a local homeless resident that could use assistance and has lost fingers and toes from frostbite from not being able to get in and out of the weather. So it's something that our folks have to address. And so I hope that you have the opportunity to become more familiar with the issues and how we might be able to respond. But to that end, I want to make you aware too that I will be presenting in May. And the reason I made it for May, which is a little later than anticipated, is so that if you do want to attend when we have this discussion, it may bring value to staff as you're providing your insight and direction that you are able to glean from these opportunities. So we'll have that ordinance for limiting camping in the right-of-way and public spaces at that time. In the meantime, we are working, again, honey rather than vinegar, and offering assistance as we go to work with the encampments that we have here in town. And I want to thank Director Neese and Chief Weingartner and his wonderful folks at Community Policing, and our dedicated Public Works crews, Director Hafley and his team, for essentially, taking it by the horns and getting the items in place to help assist with that cleanup. So that's the approach we're taking. And again, we want to be responsive and timely, yet respectful and compassionate. So it's trying to thread that needle, but that's what we're trying to do. Also want to point out that I don't have it on my paper because it got long and only had a little bit of run over, but and I think the mayor may carry on a little greater comments during governing body comments, but right now we're following up on the city commission offer for a joint session. So we're targeting April 17th to extend formal invitations to the county commission and USD 290 boards for a noon meeting. And then also I'd like for you to look at your Mondays in April, starting from the 8th through the 29th, to plan for a 2-hour facilitator session with our facilitator, Andy Huckabee, who is a longtime former City of Lenexa City Council member and is a leadership and management instructor at the University of Kansas Public Policy Center and the Kansas Leadership Center. So he'll be working with us to do that and also identify start times that might work, whether that's our usual Monday 4 p.m. sessions or if something works better. Just let me know. I went with Mondays just because that's kind of what we had identified, but if something is better or more conducive for the body, let's get that out there. Just let me know. So if you want to reach out, I'll send a formal email and we'll schedule it and get it coordinated. So thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Brian. I'll go to the commissioner comments to start with Commissioner Clayton.
None at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Crowley?
I have none.
Nothing. Commissioner Kaler?
None at this time?
And then Pro Tem Allen.
No comment.
And I just had two things there. I just wanted to say, first of all, Acting Chief Dillon, I guess we had a fire on South Ash, and I just want to thank you for your quick response. I don't know if you have anything to add to it or not, but let me just say this. I know it was a windy day, and I think you contained it to one house. It could have been multiple structures with the way that wind was blowing. And so I just want to say, we're talking about fire safety today and fires, and just a quick response on that. You guys did an excellent job on that. And keep up the good work, I'll say that. So congratulations.
Well, and they were in a dangerous situation too, because not only was there wind, but there were 4 or 5 propane bottles that were underneath the structure that was on fire.
That could have been really exciting, really quick.
Yeah, so there, commissioners, there was 3 propane bottles. It would be like your 5-pound cylinders. Eventually, the regulators failed, so they helped with the fire a little bit. But yeah, I mean, our guys did really good. Received praise by everybody on scene as well. So that's what we trained for and why we're here. So
They didn't levy, it was just
it was just
valve
blowing off.
open. Okay, that's good.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Good job. Thank you very much. Appreciate your service. Keep it up. And I guess another thing I'd like to bring up too, usually we try to look at some homes to demolish in town, and I know at one time we had a list of maybe 12 to 15 homes we were looking at. Some of the utilities have been cut, and that'd be something I'd like to look at too. I don't want to miss out on that opportunity. We've got some builders that are in town now looking at these infill smaller homes to build, and we've got some lots that hopefully, if we get some homes demolished, we can sell some of these lots and keep that pattern going. So I just don't want to skip a beat on that. If we can look at some homes to demolish.
Director Nish, you have been doing condemnations, correct? It just hasn't been done with us. Am I wrong there?
So we have some, we have a fairly long list that we've been going through the courts with.
Yeah.
That does not necessarily result in condemnation. And so it's good to have this direction from you, Mayor, as you know, that there's an appetite to see more condemnations come straight to you. So.
Yeah, there's a hearing and publication process because, of course, obviously it's a property right, so we have to adhere to a constitutional process for that notification and public hearing. So it's something that is rather drawn out, but it's something that we certainly will look at doing.
Well, and I agree with the mayor. I don't know, I mean, they used to come in front of us, and then something happened a couple years ago and that just stopped. So I too would like to see those come in front of us too, for those decisions to be made.
Yeah, there's it's the dangerous and unsafe structure process that we can utilize within those statutes.
Sounds good to me. Okay, just want to keep that in front of us. Thanks very much, appreciate that. We'll go to announcements. We've got April 3rd City Commission meeting, April 10th City Commission meeting, and we will talk again about when we can get together with the county and the school district for a luncheon on the 17th. So that's kind of the plan, but then also our retreat idea there. So if there's nothing else to come before the City Commission,